On in your package, you just have a quick letter from the Eversource company. This is part of the comprehensive incentive that we've gotten for the Vogel Wetmore capital project that we're doing there with our LED lighting, new boilers, controls. What it's given you is the project cost minus the incentive, the estimated annual savings at the bottom right-hand corner, the 10-year investment, along with the payback. This particular letter is the third incentive that we've received from Eversource, who of course was CL&P. We've so far received over $630,000 in incentives just on capital projects for the energy efficiencies that we've been trying to do, whether it be LED lighting, better chillers, better controls, boilers, and whatnot. Just wanted you to be aware of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Torrington Library Summer Reading Program.
Just once again, this summer, in order to prevent regression among our students, we are working with Torrington Library, a summer reading program. They have that's pre-K through grade 12. They have activities going on throughout the summer. There's plenty of books. We combine with book lists and what's appropriate. The library gives the students a way of recording every book that they read, and then they're turned in to the schools at the end of the summer. We have a summer celebration, and it's the children will also have the opportunity, if they can't get to the local library, to Torrington Library, they can visit their schools on a weekly basis, because our schools will have their libraries open one day a week as well. But the initiative is to prevent any summer loss, and which is critical. And this has been a partnership for, I don't know, probably about 10 years now.
Andrew?
In observation, a lot of the private schools in the area, I've learned during the summer, they offer their students either virtual learning or online learning access to their students that they have through their schools. And I was wondering if that is a possibility for the school district to implement this summer, or if it's something that the board would have to allocate more resources into the future. It was described as a way for students either to get ahead for a subject, they're going to take whatever subject they're going to take next year. They would be able to utilize this type of online learning or virtual learning during the summer to get ahead, or maybe to master material that they need to master that they didn't pick up in the previous year. And do we have that? And do we have that capability? And are we offering that to students this year?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We have a full summer program both at the high school and we have at the middle school. The only thing that limits it is the number of seats we can offer, but we offer it on opposite days for the high school and for the middle school, and it's open, I think, 3 hours each day. And students sign up. The first thing is credit recovery, and then if we have, someone wants to explore another class on their own, they can sign up and they can work from home after the hours that we use it for credit recovery.
Is there more demand besides credit recovery that the board should?
During the school year there is, so we offer, as an enrichment class or an extension class during the school year. But pretty much for the summer, we use it for the middle school we look at students at risk and have them extend or retake a class that they may have so that they can improve upon their skills and problem-solving abilities, like in math or writing. And at the high school, it's primarily credit recovery.
Okay, so it really doesn't address what I was asking about.
Well, the online learning was born out of the School Improvement Committee, and the School Improvement Committee was scheduled to do annual reviews of it and the use of it, and I would assume now that we have a new School Improvement Committee moving forward, I would say that that's definitely something they could look into, and I'm sure that they would address that, because it was part of that committee was, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that was 3-4 years ago. That was,
Right.
And now,
Well, it disappeared for a couple of years, and now it's back. The
well, I'm not
committee's
talking
back.
about the school improvement, I'm just talking
Yeah.
about the concept of
Right.
trying to expand that, not just to credit recovery. Like I said, I was just reading it in some literature of some private schools that they highlighted that that's how they provide for their students over the summer, keep them moving ahead, not just dealing with students that are
And we
behind.
do that during the school year. So they can
Summer they
take
work.
above the 5, they can take 6 or 7 credits.
Well, you do it in the summer too, but credit recovery comes
Priority.
prioritized, and then if there's available hours, then advancement is there.
Yes, and we also offer a 1-week camp in STEM for science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing, mathematics.
John?
Have we opened the school libraries in the summer in other years? I think that's a great
It's
idea.
strictly volunteer. Teachers come in, what they've done in the past at first was they would have books out in the main entranceway, and students and families could come, and teachers were there to help the children select the Just Right book, knowing the level and interest of the students. This year, the elementary schools would like to open their full libraries on a weekly basis, one day, and it's strictly teachers volunteering.
Great idea, let's hope it works, let's hope it attracts a lot of people.
And the other thing we offer too is lunch, because we have the free lunches. So we say, come and eat, get a book.
State Board of Education report on racial imbalance statistics.
And you have seen this report every year from me for the past 3 years. Right now, they're just telling us again about it. But as you can see, the discrepancy, because the problem is between East School and Vogel-Wetmore School. And last year, I was looking to take 100 children from Vogel-Wetmore and move them to East to balance it out. That was, the board said, no, let's not worry about it till we have to. Well, another option that we have is that by adding the preschools at East, next year we'll add 47 children who are, close or below the level of poverty, and that will increase the number of children both from poverty and our minority population in town, and that should bring the balance closer in line.
What will it cost us to bus all those kids up east?
We have $110,000 in the budget to pay for it. It is not an expense to the Torrington Public Schools.
It's in the grant.
Right.
There's a line item in the grant.
Yeah, that will cover it.
It's gonna have to.
Because originally I thought we were looking at roll.
Is there an estimate for to what degree bringing the preschoolers in there would address the pending imbalance issue?
By adding the 47 preschoolers, it'll raise East School's school minority to about 25%.
About a 10% increase.
But like right now, it's a difference of 18.51. What would it be? I'm just
Well,
curious.
right now, it's about a 34% difference of minorities. Vogel's at 48.73, and East School will go to 24.
No, but the
Oh, you're
district
looking-
average is 33, and they're at, call it 15.
Oh, 14.
You're going to add 10 points to it.
Yeah,
So
10
instead
or
of an
11.
18-point difference, it would be an 8-point difference. The 14, call it the 15%, 1496 is going to go to 25.
Well, that sounds like it would be really good then, because Vogel is only at a 15.28, which is actually less than last year. So Vogel is less imbalanced than it was, and it sounds like that would take care of the problem at East. Am I understanding?
Yeah, that's why.
It'll bring it close to being within the tolerable range, the acceptable difference.
Well, East would be totally in the tolerable
Right.
range then.
How do they determine race? Is this self-identified as it can be on the census and if you're a leader of the NAACP? No, serious question. How do they identify race?
It's how a person identifies themselves.
Parents?
Come and fill out, and they're working, we're filling out applications one-on-one. One family, and one representative, a parent educator in Torrington Public Schools.
So it's self-identified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why.
Just kind of a question, I guess, which is, I see it's racial imbalance they're concerned about, but let's say, for example, minority students were academically exceeding the mature, so-called majority students, would then they take that into consideration?
I don't believe
not
that,
a-
It's
I don't
ju-
believe
they
grades
don't
are a
really-
factor in this.
They don't care about the academics, they just care that they're saying if it's race-related, then there's something intrinsically wrong without having these proportions, these ratios, versus looking at the actual performance of the demographic that these students represent.
I would say more than race, it's socioeconomics. That's the big divide.
Yeah, but on this form,
Yeah.
this form is just race.
Um, No, it's, I think, yeah, racial imbalance.
Right. It's not, this is, there's no, your imbalance doesn't get erased if your grades are higher.
No,
This is
no.
strictly
Yeah, it's just government
by category.
creating some criteria
Yes.
which may or may not need addressing.
Right.
Is it saying that Vogel Wetmore only has 48.73% minorities?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it said. And that 45.58 at Forbes.
Yeah.
But back to John's point, when you fill out the form, you check the box that you feel best describes you. There isn't, you know, it's self-determined. You check the box and then that's the category you're in when you register.
So who provides this statistical information?
The state of Connecticut, big Board of Education.
Well, it comes,
Yeah.
our statistical information comes off what, the
Power
SASE
School.
system or Power?
Power School.
Power School.
So is it common that we would have a less minority percentage than we do English language learners in a building?
The English language learner percentage at Vogel Wetmore is higher than the school minority percentage.
Well,
Could be, yes.
yeah.
Because it depends on the language. Only certain categories are minorities. Other categories can need English language, but they're not classified as a minority. It is specific to which minority group, you know, there's what, 7 identified?
7, right.
So if you're outside of those 7, it doesn't matter that you need English language, you're just a student.
And,
Same applies to jobs.
right.
You have to be a certain percentage. Okay, moving on to Clerk of the Board of Education job description, we have Mr. Teague. Do you have something, documents for us to review, or?
Well, they were supposed to be forwarded to the board in packet. It came out of the personnel committee.
They were forwarded yesterday as the amended packet.
They are not in the amended packet.
I'm on my amended packet, and I don't have
They're
it.
not at the end in the annex?
Yes.
Oh, they're
Right
after
after, see
everything?
where it says appendix, the next page.
Oh, after action.
Yep.
No,
Go way to the bottom, way to the end, where it says appendix.
yeah.
Clerk of the board is the next 2 pages, and after that is the meetings.
Yep.
Everything that was new in the amended was put in the annex.
Oh, okay,
appendix.
I thought it got
Right.
blended in.
Okay. So it is there, page 86, if you're on your digital tablet. Basically, we went through, we found a group of different clerk of the board job descriptions from around the country.
Can I
different
preempt this
boards.
for 1 second, Dave?
Oh,
Just
please.
before you start. The assistant to the superintendent accepted the position to be board clerk as an add-on to the job. Last year, we were rather adamant as a board to keep it separated because it became a conflict between the two. It was joined back together. The administrative assistant to the superintendent has asked to no longer be the clerk of the board because it takes too much time out of his job working for the superintendent. So we are back to where we were at this point. I think it was right around this time last year where we're back to what does the board want to do for a clerk for the board, and Dan and his personnel committee got some job descriptions. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. So in reviewing the different job descriptions that were out there and trying to blend them all together into for what we feel could be a perfect harmony for us, basically what you see in the package is general qualifications. One of the things we desperately needed in there was an expertise in the Microsoft Office environment. So somebody that can put together the Excel packages, the Word packages, the PowerPoint packages, and have them combine it all together instead of having individual departments do it and then try to piece it together. Again, the ability to come, maintain the responsibility, notify board members of meetings, of events that are going on, be more interactive with the board, while at the same time hopefully providing a better experience for everyone involved and eliminating a lot of the paper overflow that tends to happen. In discussing it, we were going through looking, saying the average amount of time that our current individual was spending on it is about 28 hours a week doing this job. So in this, we'd be looking for somebody who's looking for about a 28-hour-a-week job. It's not full-time, it is a part-time position. Obviously, that has to be a flexible schedule, with the thought process being most days to be coming in at 1 in the afternoon and then finishing out either around 5 or 6, or if there's meetings at night, staying through the subcommittee and regular board meetings. Again, this is a general rough idea. This looks good to the board, then obviously this would have to go to budget, put a budgetary number to it for what we'd be looking to pay the individual, and then we'd have to put this out to the job boards.
And we looked at the alternative, which is to consolidate the 2 positions and then go out and look for someone who would do both functions.
The challenge is the amount of time the 2 jobs take. It is an interference between the 2. So part of the day where the superintendent's assistant is supposed to be doing the job of the superintendent's assistant, they can't do that job because they have to do Board of Education material that the board, clerk of the board is responsible for. They have to schedule certain meetings. They have to make certain adjustments to budget packages, packages for the board. There is unfortunately an overlap that occurs. So the thought process being that if you split it out anyway, it gives the superintendent an individual who is dedicated to their schedule and getting done what the superintendent needs done. And then it gives the board a dedicated individual to take care of what our needs are.
I would much rather go back to the old system of having one person do both functions and finding someone who's capable of doing that, as opposed to bringing in one more person in as staff.
Well, the trick is you'd have to find somebody who's willing to give up roughly 60 hours a week.
Right. It becomes more than a full-time job. Is the problem.
So it's a job and a half. That's the problem. So you'd be hiring somebody, again, it's up to the board.
And my concern is just, historically, it's always been handled this way. We're cutting secretaries. I have concerns about adding another position during these times when we're cutting other secretarial staff. I'd like to see what the breakdown of what's being done during these hours, because I'm still struggling with why the administrative assistant would be making changes to the budget. I think that should be done at the business office. Could we streamline some of these things so they're not all falling on that position?
Part of the increase is we decided as a group that we wanted the board clerk to be responsible for minutes and agendas for the subcommittee meetings, so that there was consistency. That used to be handled by the administrator who was in charge of that subcommittee.
But they're still doing the agenda, it's just getting posted by the administrator.
They give an agenda, and then the supporting documents and everything have to be collected by the board clerk. So although there's an agenda, the compilation.
So other than
So
budget.
shoving it all together is done by the board clerk. And then it gets emailed out by the board clerk and the postings. And so, and then the meeting, the minutes, we have the board clerk at every meeting taking the minutes, then doing the minutes.
But the minutes actually go out in our transcript. We don't actually do the minutes in-house. Do we?
The regular meetings are transcribed.
The subcommittee.
The subcommittee are done in-house,
Oh.
Yes.
But regular monthly meetings
Our
are transcribed
transcript,
out.
yes. Yes.
Special meetings are done in-house. May I add one thing just to clarify my position here? There's a lot on both sides that is not getting done in terms of things that could be done for the board and things that could be done for the district and what the superintendent is responsible for. Because doing what's necessary for each side takes up enough time. There's quite a bit of going back and organizing historically some of the subcommittee minutes into one place. They exist, but to organize them properly, there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done, and some of it may speak to FOI and other just best practices of what a board clerk should do that just can't be done by me and at this time because of so much trying to cover all the urgent pieces of business.
And you also have to add expulsions.
Correct.
You know.
Special meetings.
But those are done regardless of the board.
Right.
No, but those are added. It takes a lot to put an expulsion together. By the time you get all the work and everything together, the paperwork.
Would it be, and I'm just throwing this out to the board, I mean, have we thought, or again, I guess has your committee thought about, is there another secretarial position within the district that would be able to absorb that work? And is there another position within the district that would have interest in absorbing that? So that it's not adding a position.
As this was a non-union position before, given the sensitive nature of the documents and so forth and the time constraints, it is not something built into the contract, and as such, it was not something that was discussed. This was a non-union position to begin with.
And I'm looking more at, like, if it's budget, why wouldn't the business office be making changes to stuff in the business office, I guess?
It wasn't necessary, it was to the documents being distributed to the board were all passed through the clerk, and the coordination of those documents being passed out was done by the board clerk. So if a budget packet came in that had to go to us, it didn't come to us through the business office, it went from the business office to the board clerk to us.
Well, I mean, that's my mind, why can't that middle person be eliminated so that business and the business assistant would take care of the budget meeting and minutes and all of that, and then personnel would deal with the personnel committee and, what's that?
Personnel would work with HR.
But the-
Yeah, I'm just saying all of these little different groups, they already have some type of assistant or secretary.
Well, we don't for the business department because we eliminated that last year.
But we have a lot of other people in the
Right.
business department.
So you would be essentially saying eliminate the board clerk position.
Yeah, and I think this whole process needs to be evaluated in a totality, so as to review all of the people who can do this function and are already in the system? Can it all be broken down into different people?
One, you can't really eliminate the board clerk position. By having the board clerk, we can post our own agendas, our minutes, and actually become the posting location. It isn't City Hall. Again, we sit as the Board of Ed, as state agency. So we need to have a board clerk in that regard. To address your thought of the ability to split it out amongst different people, again, you're dealing with very sensitive information across different hours, not part of any bargaining unit involved. So to then sit down and try to go back to a bargaining unit, see if they're willing to absorb it, what the pay scale would be. Again, I'll just use the data secretary pay scale. We're talking about an individual who's already making $62,000 a year on just their salary. And now you're gonna pay them time and a half to go work beyond their normal day schedule. So you're gonna pay somebody close to $90,000 a year to absorb a portion of this. And you'll pay somebody else around $90,000 a year to absorb a portion of it, depending as far as who's available, and that becomes a huge cost factor because of the way it's broken down. Whereas if we can look at it as here's a part-time position to somebody, retired clerk, let's say, for a judicial system, be a perfect individual for it. They're coming through, they're looking at it, and they're saying, okay, I'll do the job for $45 a year. And again, I'm throwing out a number because, no, we haven't discussed, this is the first time it's coming to the full board for open discussion. But they do it for $45 a year, flat rate, whatever the hours may be, knowing that most days they're coming in at 1 in the afternoon, they're leaving at 5 or 6, and they know that, okay, if an expulsion has to happen, they have a 10-day window to get all the paperwork together, all the documents, and that evening they're staying until whenever the expulsion's done. Or in the case of our subcommittees, they know that they're coming in at 1, and they'll probably leave at 10 or 11 at night. And for the full board meetings, obviously, they have to come in early, get everything ready for us, get over here, make sure everything's set up, and stay till the end of the meeting. So, again, most of what's in there for the job description is what needs to be done. And in our opinion anyway, having certain things like if there was something going on and board should be aware of it, an event going on at a school that we might want to participate in, having a clerk of the board that would then send that out to us and say, okay, here's an event going on at Southwest School, would you care to participate, getting the members of the board to say yes or no, sending that information to the principal so that way they can be ready for it, I think has benefits.
Would you have any idea that for $10,000 or $15,000, we can get the most minimum basic job function accomplished? I mean, when you start talking 45, 50, now in the course of a year or two, we will have gone from what historically was $75,000 to $85,000 to 100, 110.
Again, we did our last individual.
I mean, we're trying to lower our costs, not.
Again, I'm not arguing with you on that
Well, I'm
side
not
of the house,
yeah.
but no, our last, previous to our professional that we're using now, our previous individual was costing us around $84,000 a year plus the benefits package.
Okay.
The current individual that's doing the job, quite a steal compared, and a great deal of professionalism was brought to it, but it is overwhelming for the amount of time involved.
But once you add the 45,000 that you threw out, now all of a sudden we're exceeding that 85.
Again, the question is whether or not you can find somebody who's willing to take on a 60-hour-a-week job in these capacities. That's the biggest question.
Right, but obviously during the summer, I don't believe the person would be needed to accomplish.
And during the budget season, the person would be needed more.
So that averages out your summer.
Unfortunately.
The way this is put together with the 28 hours a week, you're talking 1,456 hours a year.
Okay.
Out of a work year. If you take $20 an hour, that's $29,000.
Well, that's different than 45.
Right.
Again,
I'm
like I
just
said,
picking a
I'm
number,
just,
$20.
And no
I don't-
benefits as well?
It's proposed as part-time, no benefits.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's not a full-time.
again, it's up to the board if this is the direction they want to
Yeah, this
consider
is
looking
the
at.
first read. Next meeting, we'll be getting deeper into this to decide if this is a sample that Dan's group put together for us. If we have any direction at their next meeting in July, they can fine tune this, and then we can get a position posted and see if we get any applicants.
I would only suggest that we put a ceiling on the dollar amount.
Well, you set a salary. You know, when it goes to budget, you say it's gonna be
Well-
so many dollars an hour.
What I'm trying to say is, as he goes forward, he needs to know that there's whatever we decide would be the
You
ceiling.
can only pick an hourly rate, you can't pick a salary.
Okay, well, whatever
It's not a
we,
legal position that can be salaried, so we would have to govern the hours that we as a board use the person. That's gonna determine the total spend. You know, we would have to sit back and say, all right, we're spending way too much on this.
then we need to know exactly, have a really firm projection of the actual time that is needed to fulfill all of these functions.
Well, it's determined currently that it's approximately 28 hours a week for the current person doing it to do the board work. So that's where that number came from.
Well, the way that you can handle that too is the way that a lot of contract engineers are handled. They have a bank of hours for a specific time frame, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, and you can't exhaust that bank. So in a situation like during the summer, like you said, there's less that needs to be done, then there's less of a need for that person to be here for, say, the 28 hours or whatever it happens to be. We can make that decision to send that person home earlier on those particular days. We can bank those hours for budget or, whatever happens to pop up.
Just ideas.
Yeah, no, it's gonna come back to us, so this is just a first read for everybody to kind of absorb it and give feedback to Dan's group so that when they talk about it at their next meeting, they can, it's all good questions. Anyone else have anything to add? Oh, John, sorry.
Just a comment, that I think it's going to complicate our thinking to be looking at the way the job is done now. It looks easy. Anyone who does a hard job really well makes it look easy, and I think we can be fooled by that. I think there's a lot more going into this, and we're going to have to be willing to pay for that on the other side when we split it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point.
So I guess I have another question. Would the assistant superintendent's salary stay the same, even though,
The stipend for
other
board
than the
clerk would come away.
stipend, but historically, it's always been that part of their hourly work was working for the board?
Right, well, what we
Know what
did.
they're doing.
Well, we reduced the salary for
Right.
that position because we were taking the clerk out of it.
Right.
And then we offered,
Stipend.
he's not doing the position anymore, so we offered probably the most pathetic stipend that someone's offered in this district, sorry. And he agreed to take those hours on, and it hasn't worked out, so I mean, stipend's what, 3? 6? 6,000?
Seven.
7,000? So to add 28 hours of work a week to your life for $7,000 a year is pretty.
That's gotta be an average.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. David, preliminary site plans for the women's softball field are on the table for everyone.
I should have a little handout with some pictures in it, just to give you some references on what we're planning to do. If I could have made this a little smaller, I would have tried, but I know it's difficult to see.
3 by 5.
3 by
Sorry,
5.
Nick.
So what's happening here is this is our capital project for the upgrades to the girls' softball field. Girls' softball field is directly to my right, over this direction here. What we're hoping to achieve on this particular project is we'll take a look at, seriously look at a lot of the topography on this. Right now, it looks like it's going to be easier to do a cut in this infield than it will be to do an infill to the outfield. So we're looking at that particular piece because there is about a 2-foot grade difference from that infield rim, as you might want to call it, to the outfield. Kind of, it's a pretty good slope. Also, some of the other stuff that we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing the backstop that's there now. You can barely see there's a radius behind home plate. Actually, there's 2 radiuses on your print. If you look back to the darker black there's going to be more of a octagon shape type backstop. This backstop is going to be a straight up backstop about 20 feet high, rather than the concave kind of shape that we have in there now. Also, on the drawing, there's some dugout areas. I did give you some pictures of an example of what those dugouts might look like. They'll also be fenced in the front, so they're protected. The players are protected while they're sitting there. You could probably see them in this type of picture here. We went with about a 30-foot by 8-foot dugout area. We're also but hoping to put in a permanent radius fence around the outfield with a chain link and with an optional warning track that we could kind of dress this up. The warning track would serve 2 purposes. It would dress the field up, kind of give it some detail around the fence. Also, we could blend the warning track to the other side of the fence to make the maintenance around the grassy area a little bit less. We wouldn't have to worry about cutting weeds out and stuff like that around the fence. So we're looking at that part of it. Also, the irrigation system that's in here will have to be possibly, we may have to check the heads on that and whatnot, the elevations of that. We're also going to be putting in some wiring from out to the right-hand corner, which would be the top right-hand corner of your drawing. You'll see a scoreboard location there. And we're going to be putting some conduit out to that point and wiring for a future scoreboard. Scoreboard is not in the budget. I think talked with Mike about this. He's hoping maybe we can get some donations or something for that in the future. And it's really that's really about the extent of it. What's happening now is a lot of these items that I've mentioned, I will put on as an optional addendum to the project. The biggest part of the project, of course, is going to be the grading, getting that set up with the dugouts, and I'd like to get a new backstop. Once the track, the warning track, the fence, how that looks, we'll give a couple different options on what type of fence we're going to be using out there. We'd rather put a permanent fence than a temporary fence. The dugout's the same thing. We could go with a couple different options of style to see what, where the numbers are. And the hardest part of the project is going to be when we're going to be able to do it. We gave, as you all know, we gave some of this money back to operations last night at the Board of Finance meeting, and we're hoping that we can continue the project as of July 1st after all or maybe the end of July, depending on when the final figures for this year come in, to see where we're at. And that will justify the fact of when we can start it and how extensive the job is going to be. So we may be able to, once I get the preliminary plans complete and all the specs done, we'll send it out to bid and see where we're at. And we can go from that point, depending on when the monies are available. But I just wanted everyone to see what was going to happen there and if there were any objections. I did go over a lot of this with Mike on ideas of what he wanted, and Mike McKenna, the AD director. So just wanted to leave it at that. Any questions?
Before this goes out to bid, this will be coming back to us. This was where we're at. The design was already started. To put this together to be a summer project, but with our financial situation, the money had to be reallocated to balance this year. So we're trying to get the money out of next year's capital. And this was just to show you that, I mean, we've spent this money already, so this is the basic premise, and hopefully we have the funding midsummer. Yes.
I sincerely hope that it goes through. I mean, I think girls softball started maybe 42 years ago, and I think the field has maybe been touched twice since that time.
Oh, I think so,
And
yeah.
it's a shame because the girls' team is phenomenal, despite what they have to play and practice on.
It's a very exciting project. I'm looking forward to it. I hope we can do it.
And I hope so also.
For the next board meeting, can we maybe talk with, or maybe you could talk with the athletic department? I know with the permanent fencing, it does afford us the opportunity to potentially have a place for some advertisements and things like that to actually create some revenue. Maybe it would be beneficial for the board members to see any potential payback, so to speak, from having that permanent fence as opposed to the temporary.
For advertising?
Yes.
I
Like maybe
wouldn't be able to
a
speak
very
to
rough
that.
thought process
Right, yeah.
on what that space might yield.
I think the advertising had come up a while back when Chris Leone was the superintendent, and there was some stumbling block there as far as solicitation on school grounds, on who you allow to sponsor, who you're backing up. You know, are you allowing that particular product to be advertised out there, or how do you discriminate against a product that you don't want out there?
We had to set up a policy.
So I think there's a policy.
We had to set up a policy that was discussed years ago. The other problem with the advertising revenue is all revenue goes to the city. We're not allowed to collect revenue. It was given to the high school and the athletic director because they have savings accounts, they can collect revenue, but as a board, we can't collect revenue. All our revenue is to the city. It was asked of the last mayor if there could potentially be a waiver put in place that any advertising money would stay with us. And that was determined that would be a per instance decision, no problem. So we haven't gone back to the city since.
So we should do that.
Because
I think it's an opportunity lost there.
oh, it is. I mean, it was a $1.3 million a year. A resident put it together for us.
You said there was going to be like electricity there so you could put a scoreboard.
Yes.
Is there going to be anything put in place for perhaps at a later date for lights for night games?
That was not included in this particular bid. I don't think, Mike, night games were pretty uncommon, I guess.
We were working under the assumption of a limited budget, so we were looking at getting the field, the nuts and bolts of actually having an appropriate field for the girls to play on. And big things are moving the backstop and the fences, which are way too close to the playing surface, and putting in a permanent fence for the outfield.
And the lighting would all be outside the play surface, so if that was added later, that wouldn't impact the money spent on the field. Because the light foundations would have to be outside the play area anyway, so.
Right.
Are there other schools that the girls play night games?
Yes. Naugatuck plays night games. They're the only school in the Naugatuck Valley League that plays night games. Wolcott also plays night games. There aren't that many schools that play night games even in baseball. We're the only school presently that's playing night games for baseball, and we play 2 a year.
Dave, who drew these up for?
Ken Harica.
Did he do the rough estimate for you also?
No, we did the rough estimate originally back.
Okay. That was done in-house?
Yes.
would it be possible to put an estimate together on lighting?
Yep,
Just as a separate item, so we
Sure.
can see what that would be.
yep.
Thank you.
I was just curious,
Lighting or just the entire lighting or just future lighting? There would be a difference there. Do you want,
No, I would put a lighting package.
you want a lighting, a complete lighting package?
See
Okay,
what it would be.
with control.
I was actually going to direct the question to Mike, and the board, obviously. Would that be something you could solicit the alumni club, perhaps, to donate money toward?
They've already indicated that part of their fundraising efforts that they've now reinvigorated is to purchase a scoreboard for the softball field.
Oh,
That's their plan is to really go after that in the next year or so. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to have it maybe when we put the field in. That's why we're talking about just putting in the, the ability to be able to put it in a later date and have all the conduit there so we
We
can
take a
run
couple
wiring.
dugouts from them, that'll be fine.
We went with the fenced version of the dugout. It seems to be the best option and the ones that actually the kids seem to like the most, so.
More protection.
And air moves. The concrete
Yes.
dugouts, it gets quite stifling.
If you spend a hot day in a block dugout, you understand it's not where you want to be.
Do you have a breakdown of all of the different items? So I'm not positive we're going to have all of the money to do this in one shot. So can we see what it would cost if we were to just do the field without any fencing? And then what it would cost to do the fencing, and then what it would cost to do the light?
He had just said that. What he's gonna do is the base rating is one bid, and he was gonna do optional bids for the dugouts, for the fencing, permanent fence, temporary fence.
Okay.
And that way
That's where he started.
We could do as many of those addendums as we have money for.
Right, but the most important part is.
Well, the most important part is getting it regraded and getting the backstops done and getting that
Well,
done.
that's, right, but we'll know more after tomorrow night, just how much money
We'll know late July. This is predicated on the closing out of this year, the
When-
financial year that we're in, and how our ADA project goes, because what we've had to do is we've had to move the contingency money for the ADA and the contingency money for the Vogel Wetmore projects. We had to absorb that money so that we're not in a loss this year.
Right.
So our capital money from next year has to be put into those two contingency funds. Then based on how those projects do is gonna, any change orders, any unforeseen conditions, then we'll know how much money we have to do the ball field.
But when did we want to start, when we were originally scheduled to start this project?
About a week and a half ago.
Right, so that's not doable.
Well, no, because we had to use the money. So,
I-
but I'm saying, we won't know tomorrow night what the money situation is gonna be. We won't know until we close out this year, which will be late July. The Board of Finance last night gave us permission to hold our money until, as of June 30th, you don't get to use your money anymore for this year. They gave us permission to finalize our books, and then if we have any surplus that we discover when we finalize our books, they will allow us to transfer that to capital. So we have to close out this year, which will be late July into August, we'll have a better number. Then we have to sit back down, they don't meet in July. So the first week of August, or first meeting in August, I think it's the
Second or third Tuesday.
first or second Tuesday of August. We have to sit down with them and then give them that number that they can transfer. So we can't even think about starting this till September,
Probably September.
because we won't have the funding secured for that.
But this will be considered a capital project for the 14-15 year or the 15-16 year?
15, 16.
So-
14, 15 capital money was used. So that's gone. Move the project to next year.
So we're gonna make that adjustment to tentatively to our new
Yes.
budget.
Yes. There was 160,000 of undesignated money that was added to our capital by the city. So that 160,000, roughly 70-something of it is going into contingency, and that leaves us a little less than 90,000, but we need 130, right?
Yeah, well, it was 130 for this project, correct?
So-
That was a guess.
With all the bells and whistles,
Yes.
So,
Well,
No
most of it.
lights.
Most of it.
except for lights.
yeah, that's the required Title IX improvements, which is the backstop, the dugouts, and the field. The lighting, the extra fencing, those are all gonna be change orders, or options if we have the money. Similar to the way they did the turf field. They had option A, option B, option C.
Yeah.
And when we find out how the two projects that the contingency money goes into do, we'll be able to move that contingency money to fully fund this project.
With the lights, would we be able to rent that out during the summer or off-season for the different softball leagues and recoup maybe some of it?
Well, that's why I asked him for a price, so we could see if there is a revenue source there.
It's also probably determines what I'm at, if it goes through and the money is there to do it, is September start enough time to complete the project for the spring season?
Be close, depending, once again, that would depend on how we do it. If we cut the infield, or if we're gonna have to fill the outfield and plant an entire outfield full of grass, then you're gonna need a complete growing season. If we can work on just the skin field for the grade and do some minor fills in the outfield for, you know, for growing purposes, I think it'll be very, very tight. But we should be able to do it, as long as we don't lose, as long as we don't miss the growing season, which is usually the end of September, part of October.
So this is for Mike. So it would be like the same thing when this other complex was being built, you would have more away games?
No, we have another field out here that with a minimal amount of work will be the same as the field we're currently playing on. So we will be able to play our games at this field.
Would you be able to play in a city field?
There's only one city field that meets the specifications for women's fast pitch, and that's at Bishop Donnelly, and that's also being used by the Woken Tech team. So it will be difficult, but this field down here is, you know,
What about Perkins too?
it would need retrofitting for women's softball, but it's a possibility. But the fields there are not any, you know, this field, the field that we've used is a JV field with, you know, a minimal amount of maintenance will be, you know, more than adequate when we, you know, it's the same as the field that they're currently playing on. So if we needed to play there for one more year in order to be able to get the new facility in the way we want it, that's, you know, I think that's the better option than putting the kids on a bus and sending them all over town.
Is this space used for practice fields in the off-season for other sports?
Do they use that for fall sport practice fields?
Not where the fence would go really is not going to infringe on the practice fields. With the new turf field, we do have more time that we'll be able to utilize that field for practices. We're going to line a combined full soccer and football field for practices that will be on the back fields, and we also have space that we've set aside for half field, one half field for soccer and one half field for football for practices. So we have plenty of practice space out there. It's just a matter of fitting the fields in and that, but we shouldn't have any problems at all. That's why I think a permanent fence for the girls' field, I think, is really the best option.
Can you reach out to our state legislators and see if there's any grant